It's time for Get the Lax Scoop, a podcast bringing you all the people and stuff you should know in the game of lacrosse. We take lax seriously, but ourselves, not so much. Join hosts Big Dawg and Jaybird and the biggest names in the game. Brought to you by J. McMahon Lacrosse. That's JML, skills, mindset, and lax IQ training.
Ron Douglas, the Big Dog, was a collegiate football and lacrosse player at Brown. He was also an assistant lacrosse coach and the executive director of the Sports Foundation.
And Jay McMahon, the Jaybird, a three-time All-American midfielder at Brown. He was a captain of the U.S. Junior National Team and is the founder of JML. And joining us in the studio, Steve Gresalfi, whose collegiate lacrosse career statistics equals 1 goal against Dartmouth. Brought to you by J. McMahon Lacrosse. That's JML, skills, mindset, and lax IQ training, helping the next generation of lacrosse players get to the next level. Are we ready? Are we ready, Jay?
We're ready, Ron. Would you please give us a lead in? Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting NCAA Lacrosse Playoff Insider Edition.
It's a playoff preview, Ron. Stick to the title we decided on. Playoff preview.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Let's go. Get it going.
Jay, this is going to be a long night.
Oh, Ron, it's going to be wonderful.
Okay. So,
because besides you and the wonderful Mr. Steve Gresalfi, we have a very special guest that we're most excited about. Would you like to introduce him?
Well, am I going to do the fucking lead in or what?
You
interrupt my lead in. All right,
do it.
Here we go. Lacrosse fans, it's an exciting time of year, and welcome to another playoff edition of Get the Lax Scoop. Jay, we have a special guest with us tonight.
We sure
joining
do.
The triumvirate that is Jaybird, Big Dawg, and the roving reporter Steve Gresalfi.
And who may that be?
Well, it's none other than the UVA head men's lacrosse coach, our teammate, our captain, our friend, Lars.
Yes.
Tiffany.
Beautiful.
Welcome, Lars.
It's not great to be here. Absolutely. Wish I wasn't talking to you guys. Wish I was getting ready to be at Hofstra or Annapolis playing a quarterfinal game, getting ready for the Final Four. But this is a pretty good consolation prize.
There you go.
Ron Douglas and Jamie.
For people who do not know, and I've been having to throw this out left, right, and center, UVA was in the last 6 years, 4 Final Fours, 2 national championships. So suck it, everybody else out there. Now we'll just say the same for the last 7 years, whatever.
It's kind of old.
That's quite a record. That's quite a good. I don't think that's the best record in the last 6 years. We're just not going to count the 7th.
I appreciate that, Jay, and I'm grateful for it and for all those guys on those teams. But that's old news. All right, let's talk about 2025.
All right.
Well,
let's do it. Let's do
Jay, I was thinking, Lars, you quickly said yes because you're a good friend and you love to talk lacrosse with us, and then I'm sure you're sitting there tonight. Boy, it really is sinking in that this is the low of the 2025 season. That I am now talking to these guys instead of preparing for a 2025 game. This must really hit home now about really.
Come on.
Yes.
Man. Come on.
I should have taken doors 1 and 2, but here we are behind door number 3.
This will be motivation for next year.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
boy. Right. Lars is going to hang up and go, God, I never want to do this again on the quarterfinal weekend.
Coach Tiffany has been a guest during the season. He could have very well done it during the season in the playoffs. Come on.
All right, Jay.
Yes, Ron.
I believe that I had suggested we start off with a little speed round of questions to share our various impressions from the first round. I am ready with a couple of questions, Jay. I hope you are as well.
I sure am. Why don't you jump on it first? I'm sure that's your plan.
Who, gentlemen, was your top performer? Who was the most impressive performance, individual performance that you saw in playoff games? And notice my language here, playoff games that happened in men's lacrosse this past weekend.
Can I go first?
Lars, as our guest, we're going to allow you to go first. Most impressive performance.
Oh boy. I mean, could it be anyone different than Aiden Carroll?
Come on, that was mine.
What he did for the Hoya Saxa. I mean,
Holy cow.
6 goals. I mean, you're talking about a Duke defense that was only giving up about 7 or 8 goals over the last second half of the season. And he got 6 himself, scoring with multiple ways and scoring high. I mean, incredible performance by Aiden Carroll.
Yeah.
Nice
And at
job.
one
A game
point,
that I picked successfully, I might add. Picked
nice
the
run.
upset
One of the
Georgetown.
few.
Yeah.
Yeah, at one point he scored like 5 goals in a row, or maybe it was 6, I forget, but it was 9-7. And they're like, Aiden Carroll has scored the last 5 goals in a row for Georgetown. And then he had 2 assists, and then he finished with 6. I mean, holy cow, 6 and 2. And actually, I'll throw in another little tidbit that I got right off the broadcast that I was watching. He had 10 points in the Big East Championship game. So 18 points in the last 2 games. Whoa.
Hard to argue with that one. And I will just say I was incredibly impressed with that Georgetown team. They just seem to be tougher. They seem to want it more, to go on the road at Duke, who seem, we talked last week about, Lars, how those Duke teams kind of halfway through the season, especially this year, the Duke barely makes the tournament, but you kind of figure they're definitely playing well down the stretch, but Georgetown just took it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Warren's teams they're comfortable in the NCAA tournament, having won the Big East tournament 7 times in a row. They're now in very familiar territory in the quarterfinals. This next week, this game coming up, though, that getting them in the Final Four has been over 25 years. So this has been their Waterloo. Can they get through the quarterfinals?
Right. We'll
Jay,
save that analysis for next.
Jay, I love that Lars has forced you to pick someone else as your top performer, putting a little pressure off you right off the bat.
Well, I think Gresalfi's next, Ron. Let him go right ahead.
All right.
Giving Jay a little time to scramble.
Is Jay's top performer going to have anything to do with lacrosse? That's the question.
I don't really know anybody's names, so I got to give a hat tip to Mike Gannon down in Atlanta, who recognized the referees in Syracuse were the top performers, because it's always fun to watch Harvard lose, and I think they did everything they could to help with that effort.
Rude, my big upset pick of the week. I was right there with that one until you got domered. They got totally domered.
That was incredible
by the Stripes.
Ron, that was the difference between you and Jay. You went 6 for 8 last week, and Jay edged you 1, and you would have tied it had Harvard scored the game winner in overtime.
Oh, that's really got to hurt, Ron. Huh? Tell us how you feel. Losing again.
It's early in the playoffs, Jay. I have not yet begun to fight.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with, if I'm up, Chris Kavanaugh and Jake Taylor. That offensive performance by the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame was rather impressive. I was really kind of shocked that they were able to just explode like that over an OSU team that, I believe I picked to win, but didn't happen.
That is
the only game I didn't pick.
That is an amazing defense that Ohio State put on the field here in the 2025 season. We managed to score all of 5 goals against them in Columbus, Ohio in February. And throughout the season, they kept proving how staunchy they could be, backed by the big tasty Caleb Fyock,
right,
and in at 297. But then Bobby Van Buren, cool. I mean, they had some amazing defensemen in front of them. So that was, for Notre Dame to put up 13 goals and then obviously a couple empty netters or whatever at the end there, but that was a really, really strong performance by that Notre Dame attack in midfield.
Yeah, I think that was my most surprising result of the weekend. Not that Notre Dame won, but the way they dominated that game. We talked about how that had all the makings of kind of the game of the weekend, that one.
Right.
But I had picked Notre Dame in that game, and I kind of struggled to, but it was because, Kevin Corrigan this time of year, much like Coach Warren, only Kevin's gone a little farther. He had his own long journey to get that championship, but man alive, he just seems to have his teams ready to play.
Right. And for Ohio State, they had a huge crowd. It looked like so much energy. You could just feel it. And they were playing really well early. And then you just got to believe it's the playoff thing. They just started they couldn't answer Notre Dame. They started like white knuckling it. A lot of things just started going wrong, and everything's going right for Notre Dame. Like there was goals off the ride. There was a couple fluky goals. Like there was a rebound, and Big Tasty came out. I don't know why he did that. He came out of the goal to get it, as if he's like the first candidate to pick up a loose ball. And then the ball got loose and Kavanaugh goosed it to somebody who picked it up and put it right in. So it was like, God, here we go. Crazy.
Right. Right. And then the Lynch at the faceoff X, it was a little bit of make it take it there for a stretch as well.
Right.
Just keep putting more pressure on that Ohio State defense. It makes a difference. I've been fortunate enough to have had some runs in May, and it makes a difference when you're playing a team that also has had those same runs, when we run into a Notre Dame or Maryland versus teams that haven't, and that experience in May makes a big difference.
Right. No doubt. It's like, can you keep your cool when the pressure's on? If you haven't been there before, most teams, the answer is no. I mean, there's nobody on that Ohio State team that has been anywhere near the team that went to the finals, back 10 years ago. So crazy. Ron, what's next?
Jay, am I going to be allowed to give my performer of the week, or are you just going to keep going on and on?
That's the little nudge that, Ron, it's your turn.
All right, well, Jay, I'm gonna give you a little Division III flavor. I know Coach Tiffany watched some Division III playoffs.
Broaden our
and
horizons.
as you all, as the friends of the show, the listeners of the show will know, my youngest brother Scott is the head coach at RPI. They had a big win.
Little dog.
They won 2 big games to get to the Elite 8, and on Sunday they beat the number 5 Wesleyan team 14-10, and their face-off, their lead face-off specialist. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Number 25, Angelo Venuto. In the biggest game of the year. Yeah. Angelo Venuto, who might also make Steve's all-name team, won 89.5% of the face-offs against the number 5 team in the country.
That's incredible.
Wesleyan on Sunday to lead his team to victory. Lars, talk about make it, take it. I mean, this guy just dominated at the X.
It's a deadly combination when they've got such an experienced and talented goalie in the cage up at RPI with Perry, and then you combine that with the face-off prowess. How do you beat that team? And obviously, wow, what a gift, from his old coach, Coach Webster, taking down Salisbury. No longer is Salisbury in that side of the bracket.
Crazy.
They got an upstart Dickinson team. There's no gimme, but the gorilla's gone. And now pupil versus teacher.
That's amazing. Yeah. I had to look it up, but Salisbury being 20-0, the only loss. They only had a few 1-goal games actually the whole year too. And I looked that up. Yeah. 1-goal game against CNU and 1-goal game against Gettysburg. So yeah, but no losses. So impressive for Webby getting that done.
Jay, do you have a question for us? Do you have a round robin question for us about the first weekend, or would you like me to continue?
Ron, you can continue. Thank you.
So you didn't do anything. Thank you.
I have pages full of notes here, Ron.
Well, yes,
you said you would do
We learned all about your notes last week, how impressive they were.
All right, here's a question for everyone. Who's the top defensive player? You're a defenseman, Ron. Lars Tiffany here.
Boy.
A ACC Coach of the Year ×2. Let's see if we can come up with a defensive player of the weekend.
Ooh, I wasn't prepared for this one.
Dawg is speechless as usual.
Well, you gave it to Lars.
I'm going to go. I'll give you guys some time to think about it, and I'm going to go with the Ohio State goalie just based on his nickname alone.
Oh, Big Tasty.
Has to be all nickname team. Big Tasty.
Absolutely. I mean, he gave up 15 goals, and that's okay.
And
team
look, he's listed at 297 in the media guide. That means he's at least 315, right?
Right. Exactly.
Look, I'm gonna go with Sean Light at Notre Dame. I mean, I think we just talked about. Look at Jay shaking his head because
is that a real choice, Ron? I mean, come on, everybody knows Sean Light. But all right, go ahead, go with it. Let's hear your reasoning.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's really you can tell we're coming to the end of the season where patience is running thin between the co-hosts. Creative differences boiling over. Well, Jay, I was going to say I believe we were just talking about how impressive that Notre Dame win was, and while you say things just started going wrong, I think the Notre Dame defense has made quite a reputation of itself, especially late in the season, where they tighten up and toughen up. And Sean Light's clearly the leader of that defense at Notre Dame. And so, Jay, yes, I'm going to give him the performer of the week on defense.
I'm going to go with Richmond's own Hunter Smith, number 6. Big, strong defenseman, moves well, usually has the toughest matchups against the opponents. And, you know, and it's not that Owen Duffy and Dom Petramalo didn't score at all. You know, those guys are going to get their goals. But, you know, I thought Hunter Smith and a really strong defensive effort kept a really high-powered JT, John Thompson run offense for the Carolina Tar Heels, kept him at bay. And so I'm going to go with Hunter Smith.
Nice. Beautiful. Yeah, he's really good. I was thinking, what's the name of the guy on Richmond who's number 6? You
That's
thought
it.
of it. It's Hunter Smith.
That's
Nice.
the guy.
Beautiful.
Jay, are you going to answer your own question?
Ron, I had quite a large number of comments. I'm not sure if I need to just keep going on and on here, but I'm going to go with Douglas from Maryland, who is just a force. No, it's McDouglas, Mick Douglas, 51.
Zach McDonald?
McDonald. That's it. He's a beast.
Jay doing a great job answering his own question. Doesn't even know the name of the player he's choosing.
You know, Ron, Jay,
you know who I
meant,
meant.
and he can't read his own handwriting. Like
Exactly.
So he has a lot of notes.
This is kind of like his Hall of Fame speech at Brown. I can't read my own notes.
Exactly. People loved it. People love that vulnerability. Jack McDonald. He's a beast. There you go.
All right.
Next question.
Gentlemen, what was your most impressive team performance? Who were you most impressed with as a team in those first round games?
Who goes first, Ron?
Jay, you go ahead. You take this one first.
Oh, nice. I'm going with G-Town. The Hoyas, they came to play. I mean, they were like on fire. The game started. It was like, is this some sort of a track meet? I mean, they just were out of, you know, as soon as that gun sounded, they were up and running, and they did not stop. And Duke was really back on their heels. Give them some credit. They tied it up. I think it was 7-7 at halftime. But they were just so fired up, and they were not going to be sitting back waiting for anything. They just went after it. And then when push came to shove, they retook the lead. And strangely, I do remember this, and I even took a note of it. There was almost 7 minutes left in the game. Duke is down by like 4. I think it was 13-9. They're down by 4. Literally 6 minutes and like 50 seconds left in the game. And they start doubling with the goalie out of the goal. That was odd. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. And that didn't go so well because the Hoyas scored off of that. And then they did it again, and the Hoyas scored after that. The next thing you know, they were poop out of luck. So interesting. Hoyas, a dominant performance. Ron, these long pauses are killing us. We can't have it. Come on.
I know. Can you edit those out?
They're tough to edit out.
Can we go for half a game or 3/4 of a game? Because I would go all about the Crimson. I mean, what Harvard was doing.
Oh my God, I know. They were killing
what was it, 8-2? You know, I mean, they're just demolishing Syracuse, who just won the ACC tournament, coming in hot.
Right.
And Syracuse knows Harvard. They already played once earlier. Syracuse is winning every faceoff. Johnny Mullen is just dominating the faceoff X. Yeah. And yet it's a landslide.
Right. Until
the fourth quarter, until that fateful 1 minute non-releasable penalty that results in 3 goals for the Orange as they score 5 in 99 seconds.
Oh my God.
Oh, what a swing.
And then right before that, Syracuse looked like they were supposed to be down by 3 players. It was clear. And they were like, it was like assault and battery. It was just like bing, bang, boom. 3 different fouls. And then they talked it over and they only made it 2 fouls, and they made it a minute and a half. And then when Harvard was being, you know, having a foul against them, it was like a 2-minute non-releasable or whatever. It was like, what is going on here for a much less penalty? I think we know what was going on here.
Can I choose not to comment? Can I choose not to comment, Steve? You know, just in case the head of officiating or other officials.
Lars, don't worry. Nobody's listening to this podcast.
I think you're safe.
I might add, we have quite a listenership. Everyone
I'm just
listens.
kidding. We got a loyal listenership that we're very proud of and very appreciative of.
My top performer this weekend, because you know my my television was just a conglomeration of playoff games, I'm going to have to pick the New York Knicks. I mean, they're
hell of a
punching over their weight,
performance.
Ron. And, I
Whoever
really
thought
can't
they'd
discern.
go up on
I
the
don't even know what
Celtics?
sport I'm watching anymore. But I got to hand it to the Knicks, right?
The Knicks do have people very concerned in the New England area about a Celtics team they thought was about to repeat. I'm going to go with, well, I know maybe it wasn't the toughest of first round matchups. When you go out and score 22 goals, the Princeton Tigers, I think, had a very impressive opening round win. Tucker Wade, the son of a guy I used to play against at Severn, Ryan Wade's son who played at Carolina. Our own Peter Bonanno was 1 and 2 in that game. But I think this Princeton team is impressive. And I know I said last week when I watched the Ivy Championship, yeah, Cornell ran away with that game at the end, but Princeton had some impressive runs in that game against Cornell, the top team in the country. And I think this is a very, very dangerous team. And so I was very impressed with Princeton.
Nice.
Here, agreed.
Yet again, another enormous pause in the middle of the
I
broadcast.
think we've all answered that one.
Right.
I've lost track. Okay. How about, Jay, should we make this our final round robin question? Or if you have another after this, here's mine.
Please, Ron, make it
I
the
guess
last.
we can't refer to this as the lightning round anymore.
No,
Right.
no, nobody in this group really gives lightning round answers, Steve. So you can call it whatever you want. But all right, who was the most disappointing team to you in the first round?
Ooh, it's a great question, Ron. Steve, you go first. Was it the Celtics?
I'm going to go based on who I was rooting for, and I had hoped that North Carolina was going to win. So I'm not going to say I was disappointed in their performance, but I'm disappointed that they didn't win.
Well said.
Coach Tiffany.
I'm again, what is the viewership? What is the readership of this? I'm feeling a little certain I want to be putting out some sort of violent hate on some
I didn't say hate. I just said, let me put it this way. Which team do you think was most disappointed, Lars?
Oh, what team was most disappointed?
All right. While he's thinking about that,
That's
I'm
got to
going
be
to jump
Harvard,
in.
right?
Ooh,
Go ahead,
that
Jay.
was rough. Should I, Lars, jump in? I'm just going to say UNC too, because they looked so good early in the year. And I think, whatever, one thing led to another. You had some players a little banged up playing through it, but they just lost their momentum. And I was happy to see, living here in Richmond, Virginia, see the University of Richmond get their first win. That was great. But I did kind of feel like, UNC, that was disappointing because they had a few losses. I went down to that Notre Dame game and they were winning in that game 4-0 as well. And then they just couldn't handle it when, Notre Dame came back, and they couldn't handle it, obviously, when Richmond came back as well. So there, I'm done.
A little bit of a stretch of an answer. I'm going to say Colgate. That's a team. They really thought they could beat Penn State. They've beaten Penn State in Happy Valley the year before, and then they played again earlier this year and lost. But Colgate plays a very untraditional type of style of defense that can be very confusing, and it did confuse the Penn State offense for much of the game. And that was a close game, it was a tie game, and then they had a fail clear with about 3 minutes left that allowed Penn State to get the ball back. And boy, what a heck of a play they scored on to win that game. But that Colgate team, they're the upstarts. You could say nothing to lose, but I think they had a lot to lose because they really believed they could get out of Happy Valley and head to the quarterfinals. But a valiant effort.
That would have been a shocker.
The Turner, what they have in attack there is so impressive.
Yeah, 2 Manhasset guys, 2 Long Islanders, right? And Colin Monroe running that offense.
Oh, right. Yes.
They were up 2-0 early, and then I think it was tied all the way till that, like you're saying, till like 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That was a hell of a game.
It really was.
What is their defense, Lars? Because you were saying that we were doing that little group chat, and you were like, it's such an unconventional D.
Yeah, it's a zone that has a lot of man principles in it. So I might follow my cutter all the way through the defense, even though it's truly a zone. I'm just assuming I'm not passing off that cutter. I go with that cutter for a lot of the way, and then someone else replaces my spot in the zone.
Wow.
It's really different. You just, there's at times you can't find an opening, and at other times, like, why is that guy wide open? Because it's complex to run. No pressure behind the goal, so you can get the ball behind the goal and have your hands free. But
Hmm.
man, they were riding the wave of a hot goalie. Had 24 saves and a huge upset over Army. And so when you got a goalie back behind that thing, it's difficult to punch it in.
Cool.
Lars, we were talking last week about, Colgate. We were talking about the heartbreak of Army and Coach Alberici not getting in,
Yeah.
and how much the game continues to grow that, Colgate comes through, has a huge upset, wins the Patriot League. They're not even the favorite in their conference, and they're taking Penn State right to the threshold,
Mhm.
And so you just, the competitiveness of the game and how it continues to grow. That's what made it a
And,
really impressive, fun weekend.
right. And that was a team that Coach Tiffany's UVA Wahoos beat, I think it was 19-9. So it's just amazing to see these scores all over the place.
Yeah, it was a good opening day, Jay. Maybe we should have ended it there. Want to know? I'm going on vacation.
All
So,
right,
so,
next question. Next
oh no,
question.
guy, I haven't answered. Thank you, Jay. Good Lord.
Who can keep track of all
Uh,
this?
but
It's
I am gonna go
doglish
back.
mania. It's
I'm gonna go
chaos as
back
usual.
to the UNC Tar Heels as well. I mean, I think, a few weeks ago, this was a team that was looking like a national championship team. You just wonder how banged up. I know, Jay, you had some inside orthopedic scoop that was not really
Mm-hmm.
scoop because everybody in the lacrosse media was talking
Ron,
about it,
I
but
don't think so.
it just makes you wonder how banged up Owen Duffy and Petramala were, because they just did not look like the same team, especially offensively. I mean, there were some games where when those two are clicking, and they have some other parts. And, Lars, I know you can attest to that. And it just seemed like this team had a very disappointing finish. And of course, we love Coach Bresh and John Thompson up there and Rob Gutile and Dave Petramala running their defense. I mean, that's a hell of a coaching staff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it
know.
used to be like when push came to shove at the end of those games, Duffy or Petramala would just go right by his guy and score. Like when they needed to respond, that's what would happen. And it just seemed like they were just like a little slower. And they were actually going with their middies a lot, initiating with middies on short sticks behind the goal, which they were not doing that earlier in the year. So it makes you think they kind of had to do it. So
Yeah. Yeah, to the tune of 18 goals, we certainly felt their full force. So I know Duffy, Petramala, and that crew of English and Spencer Wertheim, Caden Harshberger, Ryan Levy, son of
mhm.
women's lacrosse coach, and it's a hell of an offensive unit. I really do give credit to Richmond. We've played them and lost to them as well this year. They Paul Richards, the defense coordinator there, does an amazing job with that defense. And year in, year out, it's so cohesive as a team. They don't really worry too much about the individual matchups, but I give them a lot of credit for stymieing that UNC offense.
Yeah, they're super consistent. It's unbelievable.
Very disciplined.
Spiders. Yeah.
So, Jay, we're going to move on at this point in the podcast from
Is
our
everybody,
non-lightning round.
as long as everybody's ready? I see thumbs
Um,
up all around.
I think, Jay, at this point, we're going to take, I forced us to touch a little bit on the Division III tournament, but Lars, I know you took in a little Division III lacrosse playoff lacrosse over the weekend. And why don't you tell us about the game you watched, what you saw, and what you like coming up this weekend in the Division III tournament?
Yeah, some great action. Went down to Lexington, Virginia to see Gene McCabe versus Pete Toner's Gettysburg Bullets. Washington Lee, I think, was slightly favored. They have an incredible faceoff man. Just finished his second year there, Spano. And, we had scrimmaged WNL in January, and we'd seen how talented they were offensively. So I felt like it was going to be one of those days, a good day for the Washington Lee Generals. And all of a sudden, it's 10-3 Gettysburg at halftime, literally up by 7.
Wow.
The Gettysburg
Dude.
defense played well. The goalie was playing great. But when you got Spano, you can make a comeback. And sure enough, WNL did. And they pulled it within one. They got it to 13-12. And it's just one of those back-breaking moments. Gettysburg's got the ball, up one, holding on, trying to kill some clock. Literally like 10 seconds left in the shot clock, about 3 minutes to go in the game. Gettysburg exits all their offensive middies. They put their defensive middies personnel in the game at the midline. It's 3 versus 6, Ron.
Huh.
A guy comes around, takes a shot, hits the goalie, and it bounces right to one of the other two guys. And they get the reset.
mean,
Oh.
Ron, you could have even defended that 3-on-6. You would have been all over it.
They get the reset and then
Oh,
kill 50 more seconds and score with like 8 seconds left in the next shot clock.
oh my God, that's
Great.
torture.
But great to be back at Wilson Field. I coached at WNL for 2 years under Jim Stagnita, and it is a joy. I don't get to see too many D3 games, but it's much more up tempo. They're playing fast, and the skill. There's really not much of a drop off in skill. Those guys are a little shorter, a little skinnier than the D1 guys, but the skill set, the shooting, the intensity, it's all there.
Yeah, that's right. I saw Gettysburg play earlier in the year against Lynchburg, and I was very impressed with the speed of the game, the athleticism, the skill level was way up, and they're really playing a lot of high level lacrosse in all 3 divisions. So
yeah,
good stuff.
So huge win for Gettysburg, and your prize for that is the Jumbos. Here comes Tufts.
Number 1 Jumbos.
Exactly. So they have a monster opponent this weekend. I'm really excited about what we're talking about. Little Dawg, Ron Dalglish's little brother, to see what Scott and his team can do as they go up against Coach Webster and Dickinson, who took down Salisbury. It's really great action. It's an exciting quarterfinals coming up and semifinals as they play 2 games in 2 days. D3, very budget conscious, no.
Yeah.
And what do you think? What do you think, Ron? The Engineers, can they win 2 games in 2 days?
Well, I think they can. I mean, as you said, that the bracket really opened up for them, and they're playing with tremendous confidence. I mean, they almost doubled up Wesleyan, the number 5 team in the country,
Right.
who had, a much easier game on Saturday, actually beating Brown alum Rocky Batty and his Babson Bobcats in the Saturday game. And, RPI was tested against Williams, had a 14-10 win against Williams. But I tell you, RPI was a different team on Sunday and played, I think, their best lacrosse of the year, and really were in control the whole way. But it's a 9-7 game coming out of the 3rd quarter, and RPI goes on to win 13-7. They just really shut the door and closed out that game in pretty dominant fashion. And on that side of the bracket, you've got, and first of all, here's another fun fact that my brother said.
Facts, Ron.
RPI and Dickinson have never played each other.
Really?
They've never played each other.
That was so funny. I did look up. They didn't play this year. I didn't know they'd never played.
Yeah, my brother said they've never played. So this will be the first matchup between RPI and Dickinson. And you got 2, a coach and former player going at each other. And then look,
and Ron, for audience members who may not remember, we had both your brother, Coach Scott Dalglish, Scott Hackett Dalglish, I might add, and Dave Webster on the show. And Scott was a player for Coach Webster. So yeah, that is going to be amazing. Number 15, Dickinson. I mean, it's amazing. They beat Salisbury, who was 20-0. I mean, they go in there and they beat them. And here they go playing RPI number 7 in the tournament.
The other side of that, the other game that weekend, that whole weekend is at RIT, and you got RIT Cortland. Yeah. And RIT and RPI have developed quite I can't speak tonight, Jay.
Quite the rivalry, Ron.
Thank you, Steve.
Oh, is that the word?
Let me retry that. Let me try that again. RPI and RIT have created quite the rivalry. And it was a tight game early this year. RPI beat RIT last year to win the Liberty League championship. And so, as I said, things have really opened up. Now, look, every game is tough this time of year. So they obviously got to go one game at a time. But I think it's a really exciting weekend. And then, Lars, I know you didn't mention on the bottom side of that Tufts Gettysburg, we got a UVA alum also had been on the show.
Right. Mikey Thompson.
Mikey Thompson coaching the CNU captains.
That's right.
Against Bowdoin.
Number 4 in the tournament. That's their rank for the captains. Yeah, going against number 5, Bowdoin. Impressive.
Is that the Polar Bears?
That I'm not sure of. It should be. They're up in Maine. I know they're in Maine.
The Polar Bears. You are right. So anyway, just a shout out to those, you got some tremendous programs going at it this weekend in Division III. Lars, I will tell you that from my brother, it's one of the significant annoyance points of Division III head coaches. Imagine that you work your whole season, you win on Saturday to get to the Final Four, and your reward is you got to come back and play that Final Four game 24 hours later
That
with a
is
chance
rough.
to go to the Final Four. I mean, not even a Friday, Sunday, you
Right.
know,
Right.
Saturday, Sunday. I guess that's when men were men, Lars.
Crazy.
Absolutely. Us D1 coaches, we complain if we have a Sunday to a Saturday game. We lost a big day of preparation there, Ron.
Yeah. Wah, wah, wah.
Can we just, I want to insert a little D2.
Jump right in there.
Oh, Lars.
Forgotten.
Lemoyne.
Lars.
Lemoyne actually D1 now. D1, Lemoyne D1.
Oh,
They made the move up. But just a swan song, just to the tribute to Limestone. Unfortunately, Limestone announced about a month ago that they're closing doors. The campus
wow.
is shutting down.
The campus.
Wow.
The campus, the college. This is not just a lacrosse program being dropped. It's everything.
Wow.
And this past weekend, in a significant upset, Maryville of Missouri knocked off Limestone in overtime.
Oh,
Watching the replay of that game-winning goal in overtime, as you see the Limestone faithful and the players disappoint, take a knee, like that's not just losing a game. That's losing a team, and that's
Wow.
losing a college. So a little taps. Can you cue in the taps here? Limestone, led by Coach Brendan Storier. Sad day. Say farewell.
I think that what we're learning here is that Lars is really bored right now. He's watching replays
Dawg,
of
he's giving
Division
us
3, Division 2
tremendous-
games.
Got a little
Giving us
time, a
tremendous-
little extra time
tremendous-
going on here.
You know what,
A lot
Lars?
of firewood's been split around here, Ron. You can see how much firewood's been split in the center of Virginia.
Lars, you did mention a lot about the NCAA being, cost, aware. And there was a lot of chatter last week about Ohio State getting kind of rooked with that draw against Notre Dame that probably should have been maybe a semifinal match.
Right.
Is there an answer?
Like looked like kind of maybe Penn State should have been in that spot, right? Wasn't that the team we were thinking?
It's stop pinching pennies. They've got this 2-flight rule. Well, the reality is there was only one flight happened. They put in 2 flight rules in case Air Force won their playing game against Robert Morris, then they'd have to fly back to Maryland. Well, guess what? They beat Robert Morris and they took a bus to College Park and hung out for a couple days. So, there was another flight there. They just got
Doesn't Air Force fly free on all their transports anyhow?
Right. Can't they just jump out the back?
Get a jet. Come on.
Don't they know somebody?
They do fly in the C-17s to games.
Really?
Yeah, they do some transport trips. Yeah, it's a shame, right? When you win the Big Ten, you're the number 4 seed, and you got the 2-time defending champs coming to you. Whereas you see some of the other matchups, you almost want to. If they got a choice, they wouldn't have chosen that one. If you got to pick number 1 seed, you get to pick. So, yeah, we just got to spend a little bit more money and get this close. I know we're never going to seed all 18 teams or 16 once you get past the playing games, but there's got to be a little bit more semblance of like you get in college basketball of 1 playing 16, 2 playing 15, etc.
Crazy.
Yes, I went on a tirade last weekend, Lars. I mean, teams work their asses off. The kids work their asses off. This is yet another example of the NCAA not putting the student athlete first. It's the championship tournament.
And they're making hand over fist. We counted up like what they used to charge years back. It was like $20 or $10. You'd have 48,000 people at MT&T Stadium. And then they figured they could charge way more. And we were doing the numbers one time at Dwyer's, and they raked in like $3.5 million compared to 1.2 million with 30,000 people. So it's like, they got calculators. Ridiculous. Spend some of that money.
Jay, it seems like we should
a Delta Airlines banner on the sideline and get a discount and then just start flying some people.
Right, exactly.
I like it.
Steve always has the simple answer. It's just simple. Hang a banner, for Christ's sake.
It's a simple
All right,
game.
for the love of God, people, shall we move on?
And call them members. Call them members at the Delta airline. You're now a member.
Yeah, members only.
Can we please move on to the Division 3 quarterfinal round, which starts on Saturday?
Division 3 or 1, Ron?
D1.
Did I say Division 3?
You sure did.
Division 3? I am off my game.
You're going to start having
let's be very
an
clear.
extra cup of coffee before the next
let's
broadcast.
Ron's
clear.
jet lagged from Sierra Leone from 3 weeks ago.
All right, it is the Division 1 tournament quarterfinal matchups. We're starting on Saturday, Jay. The
Yes,
first
Ron.
game, the Cornell Big Red versus the Richmond Spiders.
Ooh.
Lars, how do you see this matchup? Get us started here.
This is a really exciting matchup because it's already happened once earlier this year, right there in Jay McMahon's backyard.
And I was there in the booth with Coach Dom Starja.
Oh, scintillating right there. And guess who was up 6-1? The Spiders were, counting every one of their legs. They had 6 goals early. And so it's a team that, the Richmonds, they're not intimidated by anyone anyways, and they know that they can beat this Cornell team. Again, their team defense will keep this thing close. And as Zach Vigu in the cage can step up like he usually does. What's also interesting is the faceoff specialist, Chinoy for Richmond, he's 100% healthy now, and he wasn't earlier in the year.
Right. That was big.
Pretty cool, too. You've got Paul Richards, the defensive coordinator, who coached the defensive coordinator for Cornell and who played at Cornell. Paul Richards was up in Ithaca early in his career working with Ben DeLuca. And then moved down when Dan Shimati opened up that program. He and Paul Richards have been there those 12 years. So you got teams that know each other well. They've played each other already. But it's a tall task to shut down or not, at least contain, what they're going to see from CJ Kirst again, Michael Long. And boy, is there anyone who came on the scene better and faster than Ryan Goldstein, what he's doing on attack with that trio of them. So this is a game. This is must-see TV right here. I'm a little concerned with Cornell's, in terms of some of the specialty areas, the defense and the goalie play, but they can put up 20 as we saw them do against Princeton. So I think in the end of the day, Cornell wins this by a couple goals.
Nice. LT prediction. You got a score for us? Gresalfi's going to jot it down.
Oh, let's go 14.
Going on the record. 14-12.
14-12.
14 what?
12.
Okay.
Yeah, as I said, I was fortunate enough to see this game. It was probably in the 3rd week of the season for Cornell and the 4th or 5th for Richmond. And it was a heck of a game. And Cornell, they just never blinked. They're down 6-1. Richmond's all amped up. There was a nice crowd there. And it was just like easy breezy. 4th quarter, they were down 11-8 in the 4th quarter. And about 10 minutes left. And then it was just like they just kind of took control. Jack Cascadden, Garden City alum, was dominating the faceoffs, and he's won about 60% this year. So it'll be interesting because I don't know that he'll win 60% on Saturday. We'll have to see. And then CJ Kirst just came alive. He's perfectly happy to sit back if needed when everything's gelling. And he was called upon, though, at the end of that game, and he ended with 3 goals and 1 assist. But in that 4th quarter, he had 2 goals and an assist, and it was just like, forget about it. There's no way you're going to win this game. So we'll have to see. I'm going to go, I think it's going to be very close for 3 and maybe a half quarters. I'm thinking Cornell Big Red is going to, take charge in that 4th quarter and win 16-10 is my call.
All right, Ron, I'll go before you to give you some time to gather your thoughts. And Jay, I'm nothing if not prepared. And
oh, yeah.
I've decided to augment my encyclopedic knowledge of lacrosse with some facts about the schools.
Let's hear it.
What my research has produced is the fact that at Cornell was where the chicken nugget was invented. Did you guys know that?
Holy nuggets. I had no idea.
1950, they had like a food science guy perfect the chicken nugget.
What year?
1950.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, this, of course, I read this on the internet. That's how I know it's true. But the other fact about Cornell that I was surprised that might come into a factor is that you still need to pass a swim test to graduate.
Wow.
You'll have to, Jay, you'll have to confirm that with your White
Yeah.
House.
Oh, yeah.
But
delayed her graduation.
I'm weighing these two
a very
facts against
strong swimmer.
Yeah, the one thing I was able to discern about Richmond was that there's a Reddit sub chat that discussed the Greek system there as, quote, a bunch of vineyard vine clad lax bros. So based on that, I think I'm going to favor Richmond in this matchup in a 11-12.
Wow. That's a good call. It definitely could happen.
Yeah,
Let's
vineyard vines.
Vineyard vines, sure.
Ron,
Nice
to
call.
you.
Ron, are you awake or are you wake him up?
This is my upset special. I am also
Ooh.
going with the Richmond Spiders.
Wow.
I just think this is feeling a little bit like a team of destiny. And as you said, Lars, it's not something that like they just started playing these teams tough. But getting that playoff win and the confidence that you can get from that playoff win, now the pressure's off. You got to be playing free against Cornell. As you said, Jay, they why would they believe they couldn't beat them with the success they were having against them?
Mhm.
So I don't like to pick against Cornell, and in fact, I think I picked them to be in the championship game last weekend. But you got to go with the matchups week to week as you see them, and I see the Richmond Spiders in a major upset.
Ooh, score.
And I'm going to say it's going to be a 13-12 victory.
They do have the number 3 ranked team in offensive efficiency, those Spiders, and the number 4 ranked team in defensive efficiency. Of course, it really matters who you played. As we were saying last week, the top games they played, their defense only gives up 7.5 goals per game on the year, but they gave up 12.5 per game, against the tougher teams, as in Cornell.
Thus, I said they're going to win 13-12.
I know. I'm impressed, Ron. I think it could happen. I'm going to stick with Cornell, the Big Red, like I said. But yeah, like in the beginning of that UNC game, I did think Richmond was a little intimidated of just being in the playoffs, and like Carolina was just running around with their hair on fire. And then, when push came to shove, they were like, all right, chill out, let's play our game. And they eventually won, obviously, by 3 goals. So interesting picks. I'm excited to see. It might be the game of the weekend. We'll see.
I'm going to protest Ron's pick for a little while. I picked 11-12. He picked 12-13. That's like on The Price is Right. If I go 700, he goes 701.
That's a great
First of all, what kind of person puts the losing score first?
Very good.
11-12. That's like a kid.
I'm doing the respective home and away, Ron.
That's like a kid who
spent
Cornell at Richmond.
It's a kid who spent 15 years on the robotics team. 11-12. Good Lord. Have some pride.
I'll end this little part on this first matchup that Cornell has the number 1 team in offensive efficiency, but only the number 25 in defensive efficiency. Ooh.
What you'll learn, Lars, is no matter where we are in the conversation and whether we're ready to move on to the next game or not, Jay's going to get all his research points out there.
That's
he worked
right.
hard. He worked hard to get that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lars. I appreciate it.
All right, moving on to the 2:30 game on Saturday.
Classics.
The Princeton Tigers and the Syracuse Orange.
Ooh, orange on orange.
Jay has 3 pages of notes that he's going to torture us with. So we might as well get it out of the way. Go ahead, Jay.
I think people appreciate a high level of analytic intelligence going into these picks.
Jay, there's no one that appreciates you more than you. So go right ahead.
It's not what the fan mail says, Ron. Come on. Yeah, I'm going to go with, let's draw it out a little bit. We've got SU, who ended the season with 3 losses in a row. And that was to Cornell, Duke, and UNC. And then they go ahead and win the ACC tournament, winning 2 games in a row, naturally. And then they go ahead and win last week against the Big H, who they had lost to. So they're on a heck of a run. But I will say the Princeton Tigers, I think, are on too much of a run themselves. As we said, they scored 22 goals last week. And face off, it looks like they're actually kind of equal. Coach Tiffany could give us a little information on that too, of course. And, the 3 losses, they lost to Maryland and then Cornell twice, and it wasn't all that close. So I kind of see some separation at that level. But when they played UNC and they played Duke, they beat them. And I think Syracuse is about that same level. So I'm going with the Tigers of Princeton, 14-12. And I'm done.
Well stated. Good research.
Thank you.
Lars, what do you think about this one?
I actually have a little bit of clarity here. Princeton's defense, they are a matchup orientated. We are going to win our matchup. We're not sliding. A little bit of like playing for Dom Starja back in the late 80s,
Mm-hmm.
We're We're about matchup orientated. Well, Dom, what if somebody gets beat? Well, the nearest guy, maybe just go, go help him, go double, and I say that with all sorts of love because there's no better
A
place.
lot of love.
Yeah, way to save that one there, Lars.
No better person to play for than Dom Starsia because you are free to go out there, throw some checks, throw some lumber, a little kayak over the head, and we were better.
Are you a big kayak guy?
I was going to say that's Lars's style, the kayak and the over the head. That was definitely his game.
Oh, yeah. So the reason I say that because the way to defend Syracuse is not to slide. The passing between Spallina and Hiltz, number 22 and number 77 is unbelievable.
It's like stay on your guy even when you're off ball, please.
You got to be so tight to them, and now that Finn Thompson's healthy and he's run around, and of course they got the outside midfielders there with 7 Michael Leo,
yeah,
Rowe who can bring the gas, and then Sam English can run by just about anybody.
Oh, the English.
It's a defense you don't want to slide, but that's what Princeton does. They don't slide. So I really see an opportunity here for a Princeton defense to keep the Syracuse offense in check. The problem will be Syracuse is going to win a lot of faceoffs. Johnny Mullen he's fantastic at the X. The other end of the field, I mean, the Syracuse defense has certainly got better. McCool can be good in the goal, but this Princeton offense, with Nate Kabiri, what he's doing, Chad Palumbo, and of course, Moses Brown's own Peter Bonanno. Remember him at 2-3 years old out there at the Meister Cavan Field in Red Cup evenings, watching him smash around kids who are 3-4 years older than him. This is a really, really exceptional offensive unit being run by Jim Mitchell.
Nice stuff. I like it.
16-10, Princeton.
Ooh, beautiful.
All right.
Lars, I'm right there with you. I think this, it's hard to trust the Syracuse team. They're kind of all over the place. Sometimes you see them, and I know we talked about this when you played them. I was down there for the game you played them, and how scary they can be offensively with their ball movement and their stick skills and their creativity, but they just fall flat sometimes. And maybe, Jay, it's what you were talking about last week. They're not the most athletic team in the world, but I just think Princeton has got too much right now. I will say, I think Princeton goal play is going to be key. Are they going to get elevated play in the goal over these next few weeks? Because if they want to get to the promised land, you saw what the kind of goals against they gave up against Cornell a couple of weeks ago in that Ivy Championship game. And I was I know Cornell has their own kind of offensive firepower, but are they going to be able to get it together on the defensive end enough to get them through these next couple of weeks? But this is a game I think they win, and I think they win fairly easily.
Oh, Ron,
I think
again. We're going to quote that one.
13-8.
13-8. All right, I dug really deep in my research on this game and found out some interesting things about Syracuse. Maybe, Lars, you can back me up on this and see if it's true or not. That in Cuse's history, they've had several different mascots, beginning with a Viking, going with a goat, and then something called a Saltine Warrior.
Yeah. Are you serious?
I don't know what that is. Is that?
I was just like, oh yeah, the Saltine Warrior.
Like, is that a warrior?
Well, now they just have an orange
with a bunch of like soup crackers. What's a Saltine Warrior? I don't get it.
No, it's a warrior made out of saltines.
The most surprising thing is that after all that, they said no. Let's go with the orange with the goofy face on it.
Right, because
so
every orange has a face.
Prevailed. And then researching into Princeton, I saw some things that I was afraid to click on because I didn't want to get a computer virus. But there was Nude Olympics. I had that Dinky Train.
Wow, I had that with a Diddy trial today. I had to not click.
Anyway, exactly right. Like I just didn't want to know. I didn't want to see where that led to.
The Naked Olympics and the what?
And the Dinky Train.
The Dinky Train.
Well, the Dinky Train I know is the little like spur rail that goes to the Amtrak line that's just goes right to campus. But I still wasn't 100% sure. I didn't want to click on Dinky Train and have that in my search history.
Steve's looking for a little Dinky Train.
So that being said, I think I'm still going to go with Syracuse. I think that they're going to come alive in the playoffs because they feel like they belong. And I'm going to go with 10-12, Ron. Syracuse.
Now you're just doing that. It's like when you cut your salad. It's like when you chop your salad. You're just gonna keep doing it
10 to
to
12.
I'm just
annoy.
gonna
10
stare right
to
at you while
12.
I'm doing it.
10 to 12. Good Lord.
It definitely could happen. I mean, Syracuse is just so wacky, and then
They're
they'll
still
start
Syracuse,
scoring the
right?
craziest goals. Right.
They're
I
still
mean,
Syracuse.
when they're on fire, it's just weird to watch. Like the most pinpoint passing, shots from anywhere, just ripping corners. It's like, really? It could happen.
Okay.
All right.
Average 120 inches of snow a year. I'm sure Lars can
Whoa.
attest to that.
Global warming. It used to be
Joke.
180. It's global warming.
Wow.
I'm
Nice.
sure. I'm sure that's what they feel when they're getting their 120 inches of snow.
Yeah, it's nothing. We need more. What's next, big fella?
Well, we're moving on to Sunday, and Sunday's first matchup has the Penn State Nittany Lions against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Irish.
So, Steve, we're going to let Steve, in a shocking twist of events, go first, so that I
Back
can
to
get
back for
his,
Gresalfi.
so I
All
can
right.
get his losing score first pick out of the way.
Okay. Research has provided me some information about Penn State that I'm also glad to verify with Lars, is that one of the one of the biggest features on campus is their ice cream store. Is that true,
Mhm.
Lars?
Lars coached there for many years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell us about your favorite flavor from the Penn State dairy.
Creamery.
The creamery. I wonder if it's been outlawed because it was the Peachy Paterno was my favorite.
Oh,
This was well
Sure.
before the Sandusky scandal, though.
I mean, if they took the statue down, I'm sure they've gotten rid of the peach.
they probably have the peach ice cream. They probably call it something else, right?
so PC.
And I don't know if this is a new development, but apparently the campus has been overrun by squirrels. Does that make sense? There's
What's
a
wrong with
squirrel
squirrels?
infestation that was noteworthy on the internet.
Interesting.
Something, that I wanted to be aware of when I was picking the game.
Yeah, it's key. They could be very agitated. But,
See, and Notre Dame, the thing that puzzled, that concerns me most about this game is that they have a midnight dorm curfew in all single-sex dorms at Notre Dame, which is why I think those boys are going to be ready. We learned from Rocky that women weaken legs, so I think the Catholic celibacy is going to get those guys fired up for Sunday's game. I'm
no
going to
weak
pick
knees.
Notre Dame in a rout, 6-12. Ron.
Wow. Good call. Good call. Great. I think so.
Well, this is like a hell of a football game. I mean,
Right.
it could be a good lacrosse game, but this is like a 21-17 little grinded out football game.
That would be a
Here on
great
the
football
lacrosse field, you've got first of all, you got an offensive weapon in Penn State's Matt Trainer. The season he's having, how many goals he's scoring. And he's got a really nice supporting cast, a young attackman, Kyle Lehman, down there as well. A really good defense. And, Jeff Tambroni's teams are always tough, well organized, and disciplined, which is what you need to try to break down that vaunted stalwart defense of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It's, the experience here, Penn State's got a lot of it, right? I mean, 2023, they get to the Final Four. And arguably, that game should have kept going when they get that goal. And they should have had a chance to get to championship Memorial Day Monday. So they've been here before too. They're going to do better. They're going to keep it closer to Ohio State, but this is still a Notre Dame victory for Kevin Corrigan and Chris Kavanaugh and the troops. This is an 11-8 victory for the Irish.
Ooh, it's 11-8.
Yeah, I think it's very hard. I don't know how after the performance that Notre Dame put up last week on the road at Ohio State, which, just seemed like had proven all year what a tough team they were.
Right, and they had beaten Notre Dame.
Yeah, and was just coming off a win over Maryland in the Big Ten championship, and they just throttle them. So I don't know how you come into this weekend not picking Notre Dame to get back to the Final Four as the defending champs. I mean, for all the reasons that Lars said, Jeff Tambroni is a great coach. He'll have that team ready. He'll have a plan. But, I think Notre Dame wins this game, 14-10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how, as well, except they've been very streaky all year. You know, they lose to Maryland, they lose to Ohio State early, both games very close, one goal, could have gone either way. But then they lose to Syracuse twice by like 3 or 4 goals or something, maybe 2 or 3, but it wasn't like a one goal
Lars,
loss.
just so you know, Jay is obsessed with how Notre Dame could have lost to Syracuse twice. It's really gotten under his skin. He mentioned it about 16 times last week.
Dog, zip your lip. I'm going. I think it's going to come down big time to face-offs and as well as goalie play. Like Notre Dame, I know Fracion for Penn State is pretty solid. He didn't have that many saves though last week. Riccardelli, I feel like hasn't been that solid, but he had like 24 saves last week. I looked that up. It's crazy. So I think it's gonna come down to those goalies, but I have to say, I just can't pick Penn State. Penn State just hasn't played great lately. I mean, they had that loss kind of mid-season. I guess they're 3-2 their last 5 games. They were 6-1 early on, then 4-3 with a loss to Ohio State, Maryland twice. Didn't look great against Colgate. So yeah, I got to go Notre Dame. Who am I kidding? I already got it written down. Notre Dame wins 12-8.
Now, to me, we're moving on to. Oh, Steve, did we let you go? I apologize.
You went
Oh,
first,
yeah, I went
as a
first.
matter of
Yeah,
fact.
yeah,
How could
we
you
went.
forget?
That was so long ago. I
You forgot the rabid squirrels running
Yeah.
around.
All right, the
Happy Valley
squirrels.
campus.
I mean, I'm not going to be able to sleep thinking of those Nittany Lions being
Now,
ravaged by squirrels.
gentlemen, the final game of the weekend to me is clearly the game of the weekend, the most intriguing kind of matchup. The Maryland Terrapins.
Oh, according to the Maryland guy, the most intriguing matchup. Come on.
I think it is the most intriguing matchup. The Maryland Terrapins, John Tillman just marches his teams to the Final Four against the Georgetown Hoyas, the upstarts, who, as Lars said, I don't know if you consider them upstarts. They've been coming and coming and coming. Huge win over Duke. So we got the Terrapins versus the Hoyas. And Jay, would you like to take this one?
Sure, Ron, I'll do that. Yeah, I was loving Georgetown last week, and I mean I'm loving them this week too. I think they got a tremendous opportunity. As Coach Tiffany was saying, they really have had trouble breaking through this quarterfinal round. As we know, his very own Cavaliers have done them in on a few occasions, and it's been, Coach Tiffany can correct me if I'm wrong, 25 years since they went to the Final Four, something like that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
1999-ish. So yeah.
yeah, 26, crazy. So, but they're on fire. I mean, it certainly could be a great game, but it is tough to vote against the Terps. They've been in 10 of the last Final Four, or 10 of the last 15 Final Fours, and their guys are playing well. Their attack is clicking. They move the ball really well. You got Spanos, you got Urksa, you got Daniel Kelly, whose dad I played with on the under-19 team. He's the head coach
Ding.
at Calvert Hall. And Daniel Kelly is shooting the lights out. Had to get it in. We missed an
you were on the
episode.
U19 team? No, I
You
didn't know
remember
that.
it? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, with BK, Brian Kelly,
Yeah,
Daniel Kelly's
we-
dad. So it's pretty exciting for me to see him. He ripped a lefty one top shelf last week to get that game started. It was amazing. Kind of the way I used to do it. I was left-handed. Still am, actually. But anyway, the question is this the year that Georgetown breaks through? If so, it would have to come from a serious defensive effort. And can that happen? I think the answer is no. It cannot. So I'm going with the Terps, 12-7.
How wrong you are, Jay.
Oh, let's
How
prove me
wrong
wrong.
you are.
I would love to be wrong.
I'm just
actually.
that'll just tease my pick. But Lars, let's get your sage insight before we move on.
I have to say this is probably the toughest one because all the evidence says this is Maryland Terrapin weekend. John Tillman is 12-1 in the quarterfinal games. His only loss probably shouldn't have been a loss.
You would have scored anyway. Hit the post. Big
Hofstra
deal.
2019, Michael Krause. Did that shot go in? Maybe
It
we'll
didn't,
never know.
But
Because
you
there's
had the
no
ball
video
afterwards,
review.
and you guys would have scored. So I don't care. I've had this argument many times, as you can tell.
But I mean, that's the one loss that John Tillman has as the Maryland Terrapin coach going into the quarterfinals, trying to get to the
That-
final weekend. So
That's
you
amazing.
give John Tillman a week to prepare for an opponent, there's no one better in the business. It's the goalie, McEnany Logan, is playing fantastic lacrosse this year. The defense led by Will Schaller and whatever Jay wants to call him, Zach McGinnis. We'll call him Jack McDonald.
Thank you.
They've got a
What's his face?
Jack McDonald.
fantastic.
I wouldn't say to his face he's huge. He'd kick my ass.
That's true.
Even
That's
though
true.
Dawg couldn't do that, according to ChatGPT.
They've done well with the transfer portal at the midfield with Matt Keegan and Bryce Ford. It's a really good group. But here's the but. You know, that Georgetown defense, I think it can stand up here. They got a fantastic goalkeeper behind it all. And the confidence you have to have going into Durham and scoring 16 goals. I mean, that doesn't happen. So I've got Maryland winning this game, but in so close a fashion, 9-8 OT.
Ooh.
Wow, Lars. Very
Going with the
interesting.
Terps.
All right, Ron, I'll give you a minute to gather your thoughts. What I learned about Georgetown, which I think is going to play into this weekend's game significantly, is
I'm
that
sure it is.
one of the shooting locations for the movie The Exorcist, the spooky stairs that were poorly
Yeah.
lit in the fog, is on campus at Georgetown.
I know. I've seen it. It's great.
That's going to be hard to overcome for the Terps, but luckily for them, it's on neutral territory. If the game was at Georgetown, it'd be over.
Down the stairs they'd go.
Apparently, Hoya Saxa is a chant that they do at the Georgetown basketball games, which is Latin for "what rocks," and that means that Hoya Saxa makes more sense even in English. Like, what rocks? What does that even mean? So that's going to count against them in the game. Speaking of Latin, we all know that testudo is Latin for turtle, which is why testudo, the mascot, is named that.
The Terrapin.
I actually knew that because I have a little, I've been nicked with the TISM, so I know that a testudo is a Roman military formation where they lock shields. So, I spent a lot of time doing that, and so that's called a testudo.
Nice.
Other
Of course.
thing that I'm
Who hasn't locked shields for the testudo?
They can make a turtle out of the shields.
Yeah.
More reports of a squirrel infestation at Maryland. I'm starting to think
yet another.
that maybe squirrel is like a euphemism for something else. Like, are furries making a comeback? Like, what's going on with squirrels and Big Ten teams?
That is weird.
I'm actually going to pick Georgetown because I just can't get past the Exorcist stairs. I think they have that going in, and I just don't see Maryland overcoming that, even with all the factors that Lars has mentioned. So I'm going to go Georgetown, and I think it's going to be like a 12-13 game, Ron.
Very consistent.
Tremendous. Look, friends, we talked last week on this very podcast about Lars, as you said, how well prepared Coach Tillman has his teams this time of year.
Is it all on the iPad? Is that it?
However,
Ooh.
we also talked about, perhaps other than in the goal, do they have those difference-making players that really scare you when it comes crunch time? I was looking at Jay. I also do a little bit of research.
Oh,
their top scorer, Daniel
try it
Kelly's
out for a change.
A 30-goal scorer. They've only got 4 players who scored more than 20 goals. And then it drops down from there. They're balanced, but another thing of saying you're balanced is that you don't really have a go-to. And so I just think that Georgetown defense, Lars, as you said, is going to be able to handle this offense. I'm certainly not saying that Maryland isn't going to be disciplined, isn't going to generate high quality shots, because they are. But when you saw what Carroll did in that Duke game, and you told me that if this game doesn't come down to it, too, I think, Lars, you said an overtime kind of game, who's got the horse that you want to jump on that's going to make the big play? And I actually think, unlike many years, it's the Georgetown Hoyas who have the best player on the field, who, when crunch time comes, is going to make the difference-making play.
I will
Screw
say
the-
he looked like a man on a mission.
The preparation, the discipline, the iPads,
Right.
the 55 different sets for every defense imaginable.
Give it a
I
Jimmy
think
or Joe. And
There's a
let 'em make
little
play.
something in sports called momentum and confidence, and Georgetown has it, and they're going to pull the upset and go to the Final Four.
Ronbo. That's a big call.
You.
Woo! I love it. I'll back it up a little with some statistical backage where we've got the number 22 offense for Maryland. I mean, they're the number 2 team ranked in the tournament, but number 22 offense going against the number 23 defense in the Hoyas. And then their defense is number 2, of course, and Hoyas is number 11. But Ron, we're gonna mark that down. Score.
This is a 10-8 victory for the Georgetown Hoyas.
It's impressive.
If you can get to double digits against Maryland, I think that Georgetown defense is playing better than their seasonal statistics would indicate at this juncture. So I think 10-8.
I think it's a valid argument.
An intriguing game for
Very
certain.
intriguing. Very intriguing. Of course, if it starts and like the Maryland machine is rolling along and it's 6-1 in the first quarter, we all might just puke, but
Then we can
hopefully it
amend our
doesn't happen.
picks.
Right. But if there was any team that I could question validity of in this 9-1 situation for a Maryland team, I'm saying, like over the years, it would be this team. You know, it was weird how they lost to Rutgers, they lost to Michigan, and you know, during the regular season, some uncharacteristic lack of consistency there. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
And they come from the Big East, which now is the only conference in Division I that has a Pope, right? And the Pope went to Villanova.
That's right.
That's
So-
correct.
They have that momentum going too, Ron.
Very good.
That's
They got the
impressive.
white smoke. They got the white smoke.
Yep.
Pope power.
Leo the
They got the
14.
white smoke. That's
Leo
an-
the 14.
Steve, that is an outstanding point,
The
Steve.
guy's been making the rounds. Maybe the Pope Mobile is going to pull up right at Hempstead. Oh no, it's at Marine Corps Stadium. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, you don't want the Pope driving through Hempstead.
No,
True.
no. Well, thank God it's bulletproof.
Wow.
We'll put that to the test.
Yeah.
Beautiful, fellas. Final comments, Coach Tiffany. You have the floor.
I have the floor. Yeah, I think the last game is the most intriguing one. You got 2 great goalies, Logan McEneedy and Anderson Moore, playing for Georgetown. That's why we got the predictions for a lot of us are low. I've got 2 single digits, 9-8, only 16 goals in regulation. It's going to take overtime to get that 17th goal. This is what it's all about. You know, when you get to the quarterfinals, you get 4 great games. You get teams you just, you know, we could all go over, any one of us could go 0 for 4 and not be too surprised. And
Right.
this is what it's all about right now. But yeah, I definitely hedge towards the teams who've been here before and have won here before. It does make a difference.
Nice. Dog,
Makes
any
sense.
final thoughts?
Sunday is
Steve, you
just
go.
lining up to be an epic TV day. You know, we have the 2 games that we talked about. Can Rory win 2 majors in a row?
Ooh, how
You
about
got
that?
the PGA Championship down at Quail Hollow. You got the NHL and NBA playoffs raging. It's going to be a lot of like multi-game screens going on.
Not for me, but I know I can appreciate other sports, but not this weekend.
Well, it's interesting. I'm going to be having to take advantage of my online subscriptions because my new global profile. I'll be watching these games from Brussels.
Whoa,
Yes.
Ronbo.
Yep. I'll
You
be
meeting some central bankers there, or what's bringing you to
be
Brussels?
going to the EU Humanitarian Forum,
Oh,
talking about how some of those European countries can help Adesia Nutrition meet some
Nice.
of the urgent nutritional needs of children around the world, which there's some crisis situations facing us around the world. Not to end the podcast on our
I was just going to say,
global
while I'm pissed
malnutrition
'cause-
crisis, but what I will say, fellas, is this is my favorite weekend of lacrosse every year. As you said, Lars,
really?
you-
Even more than the Final Four?
well, because I've got 4 games. I've got a potpourri. I've got a virtual potpourri of games to select from throughout the weekend, Jay. 4
That's
games
true.
is
Yep.
better than 2.
And they're usually always epic.
These, yeah, and you know, you look at the teams that are playing and the lacrosse brands, if you will, up and down the bracket that are remaining. And as you said, Lars, and we talked about this last week in the first round, how many times in the first round could you say, I wouldn't be surprised if this team lost, and I wouldn't be surprised if this team won the national championship? And so I think you could say that of pretty much every team that's playing this weekend, especially this year. I think the first weekend proved that it remains the most wide open tournament that we've had in a long time, and that should make for a really exciting weekend of lacrosse.
A rump. Well said, Ron. Steve, any parting shots?
That's it. I just can't wait for everything to watch this weekend.
The montage of sports for Gresalfi.
Steve's
Awesome.
going to be watching to see if any squirrels make it out onto the field.
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned about both Big Ten teams having squirrel problems.
It might be a big part of the weekend. We'll hear. They'll got some reporting. It might be like breaking news. Look for little scratches on like their legs and appendages.
Yeah, the chances of getting attacked by a squirrel are low, but they're never zero.
Steve, as you're watching all the athletic coverage this weekend, I hope you'll notice that generally speaking, they announce the winning team scores first. Just generally, I think you'll just want to take note of that as you're watching the coverage this weekend.
Everyone knows what I was talking about, Ron. Stop being so pedantic.
Oh, pedantic Douglas. I love it. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you enjoy this great weekend. And we'll look forward to you next week. Signing off. Until we meet again, here's to hoping you find the twine. We're signing off here at the Get the Lax Scoop. Thanks again so much. We will see you the next time.